Because you hit play on this episode and you found the time to listen to this, here's what I know about you. You're not only the kind of person that values your time, but you have a lot of ambition and you're looking for ways to advance your career and you're in the right place. Your ambition might mean that you want to make more money or land your dream job or just get the recognition and respect that you deserve at work. Well, this conversation today is a must listen for you and for everyone that you care about, because there are specific things that you can do based on the research to get what you deserve at work and in life. Everything that you're about to learn today comes from 15 years of research from Harvard Business School professor Alison Wood-Brooks. She also has a brand new book, Talk, which is all about the science of communication, and it summarizes one of the most popular courses at HBS that she created and teaches. Now, Professor Brooks took time to come over from her Harvard Business School classroom over across the river in Cambridge to be here in our Boston studios for one reason. She's doing it for you. Now, to put this in context, if you were to even get into Harvard Business School, I know I probably couldn't, it would cost you over $100,000 a year to attend. And today, you're getting the biggest takeaways distilled down for free. So if you have somebody in your life who needs to ask for a promotion, or maybe there's someone that you know that is entering what is a very tough job market right now, this conversation today and everything that Professor Brooks is about to share is going to give you a leg up and the confidence boost you need. And we're also going to get into some groundbreaking research that changed my life. This is research that will help you nail any interview. It'll help you navigate a difficult conversation and destroy that presentation that's coming up, no matter how nervous you may be. Class is in session, and it's going to be a master class at that. Professor Alison Wood-Brooks, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, congratulations on your best-selling new book, Talk, The Science of Conversation and the Art of Being Ourselves. And I cannot wait to have you teach us exactly what to do so that we can get ahead in our careers, we can land our dream jobs, we can get paid what we deserve, and we can manage the stress and anxiety that comes from all things about making money and truly negotiating better. And so I just want to start by having you tell the person who's listening about your background, the classes that you teach at Harvard Business School, and why they recruited you. They recruited you to come to Harvard Business School to teach negotiation.
Yeah, I'm a behavioral scientist. I got my PhD at Wharton at the business school in Philadelphia, where I studied emotions and how people feel, how they talk about their feelings, and specifically in the context of negotiations. How do we feel when we're negotiating? How do we feel before we negotiate? And I was hired at the Harvard Business School to teach this course on negotiation. And it's an incredible course. It's so valuable. We all need to learn how to negotiate more effectively. I taught that for about 4 years, and then I started to get a little itchy. I was like, I think the business school might need something else in addition to this negotiation course. Mm-hmm. And I created a course called Talk that focuses very broadly on how to become a better conversationalist in all areas of your life.
And let me just say, it's not just any course. This course has a wait list. I mean, students are trying to negotiate their way into this course. And before we jump into some of the research and the specific things that you're going to tell us to do in order to get promoted, in order to negotiate a higher salary, in order to find and land our dream jobs, and to also combat the nerves that come from negotiating and having difficult conversations at work or in our life. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the biggest takeaways that the person listening might find very surprising from the Harvard negotiation course?
Yeah, I think when we think of people when you imagine a good negotiator, I think this really tough, rigid, persuasive person comes to mind. Mm-hmm. When we actually study people negotiating in practice in the real world, often the best negotiators are people who are just great communicators, people who have and are good at developing meaningful relationships, who figure out what other people need and then figure out how to actually deliver what other people need. It's not about getting in there and saying like, give me more money or give me more power. It's literally giving people, actually adding value and bringing what people need to them.
I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Because if I think about negotiating, whether it's for a higher salary or it's just trying to get the better deal at a car dealership,
Yeah.
or it is winning any kind of argument, I would think that you need to be firm and blustery and know your value and kind of have the right things to say. But if I'm hearing you correctly, you just said that the best negotiators based on the research are people that understand the needs of the person they're trying to get something from?
Of course. Yes. Very few negotiations are about just one issue. It's not like you're going to be doing this tug of war, push and pull on the price of a car. There are other issues that matter. For example, starting with, nobody wants to talk to somebody who's blustery and decisive and harsh.
True.
Like, no one goes into an interaction wanting it to be miserable and confrontational. And so even that itself is a thing that you can deliver to them to make it more pleasant, more enjoyable. That is value that you can bring to them. That's going to make them more likely to make a concession on price.
So I want to take all of the research and the biggest takeaways from the incredibly popular classes that you teach at Harvard, and I want to apply them to getting ahead in your career, getting a job that is your dream job and actually landing it, networking effectively, managing nerves when you have to have tough conversations. And I want to go through this one by one. What is the single biggest factor that determines whether or not somebody actually gets promoted or paid more at work?
It's so funny. When we think about people who get promoted, we think of these powerful people who are sort of like masters of the universe or maybe tycoons or whatever. In practice, the people who thrive at work, who do well, who perform well, are good at conversation. They're doing a good job talking to their coworkers. They're doing a good job talking to their investors, to their clients, to their customers, to their boss. They're people that everyone likes working with because they're enjoyable to be around and they're bringing value. They're working hard and bringing value to the people around them.
You know, that makes sense because I remember seeing somewhere this research about the single biggest factor that determines whether or not a woman in particular gets promoted or somebody that is a minority gets promoted, and it's whether or not their contributions are known. And if you really stop and think, if you're somebody who is quiet and you're hoping people know what you're doing and you're not a good communicator because it's not a skill that you've practiced or because your nerves get the best of you, then you're leaving it to hope and chance that you're going to get recognized.
Yeah.
Because your contributions being known is largely determined by whether or not you can communicate effectively.
Yeah. Sometimes your contributions are observable without talking. Sometimes other people will notice and will say something and sort of promote about you, talk good about you, something that they've observed. But very often, if you think about a high performer at work and you track back, well, how did they become known as a high performer? You track the chain of information back. And very often it comes back to a point where it's like, well, actually, he told me himself that he just won this award or that he just figured out this new problem or he figured out this new thing. So very often it comes back around to this idea of like if something great is happening and no one's noticing, it's up to you to share it with someone.
You know, I just had this happen because we've found out that we are the #1 ranked podcast in the world on Apple Podcasts. I mean, it's like I never in a million years imagined a world where I would see the Mel Robbins podcast ahead of Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even somebody that listens to this show twice a week, every week wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Because you're not paying attention to the charts.
That's right.
It's not until I actually say that this is something that has happened that you're aware of this thing that has happened.
And what's so amazing is...
And I almost don't want to say it because I feel like, okay, I'm bragging and then you're not going to like me and then you're going to think I'm full. Let them. I can follow my own advice. But what were you going to say, Professor?
I was going to say, now that you've said it, anyone who hears this episode can then go and they can share that information. I can leave our conversation here and I'm going to say, guess whose podcast I got to go on? And it's so amazing because guess who's the #1 podcast right now? It's Mel's podcast. I wouldn't have known that except if you told me, even someone who's coming to visit. So there are so many examples of this where it wouldn't be known unless you shared it.
I think a great rule of thumb is to assume that nobody at work actually knows what you're working on.
That's right.
Unless you are very good at communicating and you're making it known.
Yeah.
I have a question because at Harvard Business School, y'all do a lot of research on what makes for effective CEOs and what makes for influential leaders at work. And this applies to all of us, this research. It's not just, somebody in a company. This is about whether or not you do a good job leading a group of volunteers to do something, whether or not you're a good leader in the Little League, kind of system that everybody and all your friends are coaching in. Yeah. Leadership is a function of your ability to influence other people. So when you look at the research that is done at Harvard Business School, what is the most kind of overlooked skill of great leaders?
Yeah, I think this is part of why my course has been such a hit and why it sort of hit such a nerve. Even when our students are in business school, they focus on hard skills like, I'm going to learn as much as I can about finance. I'm going to learn as much as I can about accounting. I'm going to learn as much as I can about private equity. But when you revisit with actual leaders out in the world, whether it's at a fancy company and they're a CEO or the manager of the night shift of the serving staff at a restaurant, every time, everything they have in common, they say, I've been successful because I'm good at interacting with the people around me. I'm good at connecting with people. I'm good at figuring out what people need and helping them get it. Conversation is this incredible superpower that not enough of us are taking advantage of.
Well, it's true, because if I think about wanting to be successful, whether it's launching a business or having a side hustle or just continuing to get promoted and feel like I'm growing at work or to land my dream job and network effectively, I'm thinking more about these things I'm supposed to do, but I'm not thinking a lot about the importance of mastering the skill of communication along the way.
And it is a skill. Yeah. And nowadays, because of this new science of conversation, it's a more quantifiable skill than ever before. And we've learned so much about how to build this skill.
So if the research is undisputed that making your contributions known is one of the most effective things that you can be doing, because just assume your boss is so busy, they don't even know all the things that you're doing. And if you're really good at your job, you're taking care of so much that they're not aware of it because it's not on fire anymore.
Yep.
So are there strategies that you recommend that somebody think about in terms of how you make sure that the value that you're providing is known at work?
I think two things. One, keeping notes. If you feel like you've done something valuable, make note of it. In academia, we have these very long CVs where we track like everything, every little move we make, every conference we attend, every tiny poster that you present, every paper that you publish. And it seems a little bit ridiculous, but in retrospect, when you look back, you say, no, that was just keeping notes on all the little things that I did that felt like it added value to the field, added value to my organization, to my co-authors, all of it. And so you can see why that's valuable. It's sort of undisputable evidence of all of the value that you added somewhere.
And it's sort of like if a year goes by and you look back at your camera roll and you're like, oh my God, I forgot that I went on that trip in July.
Everyone forgets. Yes. So how can you expect your boss to know and remember if you yourself don't even remember?
Yep.
So keeping notes in some way, some document where you're keeping track of what you've done is sort of part one. And part two is talk to people about it. Tell people when you've done something that you feel proud of or you feel like could be valuable, don't keep it a secret. Like no one's going to know about it. And yes, maybe it brings you a sense of pride, but in terms of work, it's really valuable to share it.
I have two other things that I would love to share as ideas, because I remember when my daughter started at this massive cybersecurity firm, and they didn't do any just 101 training on what makes for a good week. What do you do on a Monday? What do you do on a Friday? And so the first piece of advice was exactly what you're saying. Every single week on a Friday, take out your notes app or take out a running document and write down the things that you worked on.
Yeah.
And the second thing, which I think is a great idea, is at the end of the week, send a short email to your boss and just say, these are all the things that I got done this week. These are the things that I'm still working on next week. Is there anything that's a higher strategic priority that you want me to focus on next week? And what happens when you do that is now in one email, you've communicated everything you've done.
Yeah.
And you've recalibrated to see if there's something strategic that is on your boss's mind that you now need to prioritize.
Yeah.
And the third thing, and I heard this from somebody else, I can't remember who said this. It was at, a big kind of conference that I was speaking at, and I thought it was brilliant. If you solve a problem, and it could be anything. You could be working at a big box retailer and you had to mop up something and the mop didn't work, and so you use something else. If you solve a problem, send an email wide about what happened and how you solved it, because then you become a person that has wider visibility of being somebody that's very proactive, and it matters. And even if they don't promote you at your work, guess what? You now have a record of all this stuff for when you're interviewing.
Yeah.